This all happened back in the early 2003 or 2004 when I was in high school. Our school had been dealing with what everyone called a crime wave. Students kept having stuff stolen from their locked lockers. It wasn't happening to everyone, but it was common enough that we all knew at least one person who'd been hit. The school's official stance? It was our fault for sharing our locker combinations with friends. They even charged us $150 every time we needed to change a locker combination after a theft, claiming we were responsible. Then it happened to me. Someone took my graphing calculator right out of my locked locker. This wasn't some cheap calculator either. It was a Texas Instruments 86 that cost about $150 back then, which is like $240 today. And I was certain I hadn't shared my combination with anyone. My friends and I were always pulling pranks on each other, so there was no way I'd give them that kind of ammunition. So there I was, out $150 for the calculator, plus another $150 to change my locker combination. The school brought in a locksmith to replace the entire lock mechanism, which is how they justified the steep fee. Here's where things got interesting. My dad was drinking buddies with a county detective. I'll call him Uncle Buddy. When my dad told him what happened, Uncle Buddy decided to look into it. He went to the school to request the security camera footage from the day my calculator disappeared. The principal brushed him off, saying it was a non-existent problem and that I must have given out my locker combination. When Uncle Buddy pushed for the footage, the principal told him he'd need a warrant. Then when he actually got one, the school fought it in court, claiming it violated student privacy. That's when Uncle Buddy came up with a plan. He showed up at our house one evening with a laptop in a bag. Uncle Buddy told me to put the laptop in my locker and tell everyone about my brand new laptop. I agreed, though I was confused by his request. I didn't fully understand what was happening, but I did what he said. 3 days later, I went to my locker between classes, and the laptop was gone, bag and all. They'd also taken my bottle of Coke and some pens. I immediately texted Uncle Buddy. I messaged Uncle Buddy that the laptop had been taken. He replied telling me to stand by for a crap show and told me that officially I had reported the theft to the police. I texted back that I understood, though I was still confused about what was happening. I went about the rest of my day. The next morning, Uncle Buddy showed up at school with 3 uniformed officers. They pulled a student, I'll call him Dave, out of class along with his mom, who worked in the front office. I couldn't hear what the cops were saying, but the principal was livid, shouting about how Uncle Buddy had no right to accuse anyone of theft or remove students from his school. It turned out there was a GPS tracker in the laptop bag. Uncle Buddy had gotten a warrant to search a specific house based on that tracking data. Since the laptop was worth over $1,000, the theft counted as a felony. The next afternoon, Uncle Buddy set up a tent with a table just outside school grounds, with a banner reading, "If you have had something stolen from your locker, see me." By the following morning, Dave and his mom made the local paper. Apparently, Dave had used his mom's login information to access the school network and get the locker combinations for basically everyone. Then he would just open random lockers, looking for valuable items to steal. When Uncle Buddy set up that stand to collect theft reports, the charges started piling up. Each locker counted as a separate misdemeanor, unless the stolen object was worth more than $1,000, which made it a felony. In less than a week, Uncle Buddy had opened and solved the case. Dave and his mom were charged with 9 felonies and 35 misdemeanor charges. When I finally got the full story from Uncle Buddy, he explained that he had me deliberately stash a brand new laptop with a GPS tracker in my locker to get it stolen. Then he got a warrant to search the property where it had been taken. Since my calculator and the laptop were stolen on different days, and I'd changed my combination in between, Dave got both a felony and a misdemeanor charge from me alone. The 9 felony thefts added up to around $12,000 total, and the 35 misdemeanor charges totaled about $3,000 in value. And that was just what they could prove. These were only the items they found in Dave's possession that they could trace back to specific students. The actual number of thefts was likely much higher. The prosecutor offered Dave 10 years, 5 in juvenile detention, and 5 in adult prison, and 15 years for his mom. They refused the deal and went to trial. Dave ended up with 1 year in prison for each felony, the state minimum, and 1 month probation for each misdemeanor, totaling 9 years plus 35 months of probation. His mom got hit even harder with 18 years in jail and 6 years probation. I attended parts of the trial, and the evidence was overwhelming. They had Dave on camera entering over 20 lockers, and they found stolen goods for every single charge. The judge was annoyed that there were likely other crimes they got away with that couldn't be proven or weren't reported. But the story doesn't end there. Everyone who had been charged $150 to get their locker combinations changed sued the school district in a class action lawsuit. The argument was that the school did nothing to investigate the 44 proven and likely 200 plus total cases of locker theft and then charged students money to fix the problem. There were 218 people in the class, and after attorney's fees, each of us got $85 back. The principal lost his job for ignoring the massive problem that had been repeatedly reported to him. The school had already paid the locksmiths $150 per locker, but now they had to return $100 per locker to students. That meant they were out $21,800 plus their legal fees for the class action suit. I got my graphing calculator back. I had my name engraved inside the battery compartment, so it was easy to identify. I still have it, along with this story to tell. I had a week from hell. 5 days of business meetings and temperatures in the high 90s with humidity between 75 and 85%. I sweated all week. Friday came, all I had to do was fill up the rental car's gas tank before returning it at the airport. I pulled into a gas station with multiple pumps, but they were all busy until I reached the last one. I saw a woman sitting in her vehicle with the pump handle hung back. I thought she was done. I pulled behind her and gave a beep beep of my horn. 3 minutes passed. She didn't move. I got out of my car and walked to her vehicle. I asked if she could move as I was waiting for the pump. That's when it started. She was on 2 cell phones. She screamed at me that she hadn't pumped gas yet and needed to pay. She told me not to rush her and said she already told the last 3 people to wait behind someone else. Between my bad week, airport deadline, and this woman using a public pump like her office, I snapped. I'll call her Bunny. I asked if she was serious about sitting on phones while people waited, telling her this wasn't her living room. Bunny said she could do what she wanted because she was there first. I called her entitled and told her to get out and pump gas or move to a parking spot. For everything I said, she said something completely off topic. Then she tried to make her Rottweiler/Pit Bull mix attack me. The dog was barking from inside her car. Bunny didn't know I'm good with animals. I don't train dogs, it's just an ability I have. I talked to the dog softly, showing him my hand. The dog calmed down right away, wagging his tail. This made Bunny angry. She told me to get away from her dog and asked what I was doing. She got out of her car and said she would hurt me and that I didn't know who I was dealing with. I laughed, thumped my chest, and told her to try it. She didn't know I've done kickboxing for 10 years and won trophies. I wasn't scared of her. I called her bluff on every threat. She said she would call the police. I told her to do it since I had done nothing wrong. She called them. While we waited, her father drove up. He listened to my explanation, and he looked at his daughter with frustration. He left as the police arrived. I walked to the officers, introduced myself, and explained. They asked me to move to another pump and said they would talk to me after. I filled up quickly and waited in the lot. The female officer took my license and told me Bunny said I touched her. I told her that wasn't true, and if I had touched her, she'd be on the concrete. The officer smiled. The male officer then told me I could go. I thanked him but made one request. I asked him to tell Bunny that if any video she took went online, I would sue her since I hadn't agreed to be recorded. The officer said he would tell her and wished me safe travels. As I left, I saw in my mirror that they were putting handcuffs on Bunny. She probably had a warrant. I felt bad for the dog. He needed a better owner. I'm an early morning person. There's something about the quiet world before everyone wakes up that's peaceful. After my divorce last year, morning walks became my therapy, a chance to clear my head. Moving to a new neighborhood meant starting fresh, and the local park became my spot. This Saturday was different. I had a late start after fixing my daughter's bicycle at her mom's place. By the time I reached the park, it was full of weekend activity, families picnicking, joggers, and kids playing. I found a quiet path and started walking. The sun was bright but not too hot. When I rounded the corner near the playground, I noticed a little girl, about 6 years old, playing on the swing set by herself. She pumped her legs enthusiastically, her face filled with joy as she went higher. It reminded me of my own daughter, and I smiled at the scene. That's when I heard an angry voice behind me. The woman asked what I was doing there. Her tone startled me. I turned to see a woman in her mid-30s staring at me with narrowed eyes and crossed arms. I asked her what she meant, confused by her approach. She repeated her question more aggressively, asking if I was some kind of weirdo and why I was looking at her daughter. Her accusation caught me off guard. My smile disappeared. I told her I was just admiring how happy her daughter looked on the swing. The woman told me I could admire from a distance and not to come near her daughter again. She almost spat the words. I felt my face flush with embarrassment as nearby parents looked our way. Not wanting to cause a scene, I nodded and walked away. I was halfway down the path when I heard her speaking loudly to her daughter. She was telling the little girl this was why they couldn't trust strangers, calling all of them dangerous. I stopped. That was too much. Being careful was one thing, but painting every stranger as a threat and using me as the example. I took a breath and turned back. I told her I didn't like how she was talking about me in front of her daughter. I said I was just trying to enjoy the park like everyone else. The woman scoffed and said I was probably there to steal their things. I told her this was a ridiculous accusation and that I was trying to be polite and talk with her. She said she didn't want to talk to me and turned her back. I felt my patience wearing thin, but kept my composure. I told her that while I understood her concern for her daughter's safety, teaching the child to fear everyone she meets wasn't helping her. She turned around, her face flushed. She shouted that I shouldn't tell her how to raise her child and said I had no idea what being a parent was like. I took another breath and told her I was actually a parent myself with a child of my own. I added that I would never teach my child to be afraid of all strangers, and that teaching children to be kind and open-minded was better than teaching fear. She didn't believe I was a parent. She then said keeping her child safe was important to her, even if that meant being careful around strangers. By now we had an audience. Parents were watching us, some moving their children away. I said being careful was one thing, but teaching her daughter to fear everyone wasn't healthy and would only create fear and mistrust in the child. Her face turned red. I could see her fists clenching as she stepped closer. She told me she was sick of me and my opinions and threatened to call the police if I didn't leave. She was inches from my face now. I could feel her breath. I refused to leave until she said sorry for how she treated me. What happened next was fast. The woman screamed and lunged at me, hitting my chest with both hands. I stumbled back but kept my balance. She came at me again, swinging wildly. I tried to dodge her blows without hurting her. One of her swings knocked me off balance, and I fell onto the grass. She jumped on top of me, screaming. Using my weight, I flipped our positions and pinned her arms to stop her attack. I told her I wouldn't let go until she calmed down. She called me a psycho and told me to get off her. She struggled against my grip, but I held on. After about 30 seconds, she stopped fighting. I let her go and stood up, brushing grass off my clothes. My heart was pounding. By this point, a crowd had gathered. The woman's daughter was crying near the swings, being comforted by another parent. Someone had called park security, who arrived as the woman was getting to her feet. The security officer asked what was happening. Several people spoke up, explaining how the woman had attacked me. The security officer listened and then pulled the woman aside for a private talk. I could see her pointing angrily at me as she spoke. After a few minutes, the security officer asked if I was okay and whether I wanted to press charges. I looked at the little girl, who was watching with wide eyes. The last thing I wanted was to upset her more. I said no to pressing charges and told him I just wanted to finish my walk in peace. The security officer nodded and walked the woman and her daughter toward the exit. As they left, I heard the woman saying something but couldn't make out what. The crowd left with a few people checking if I was all right. I sat on a nearby bench, still shaken. An elderly man who saw everything sat down beside me. He told me I handled it well and mentioned that the woman had been causing trouble for weeks, always fighting with people. I nodded, not knowing what to say. As I got up to continue my walk, I decided to come to the park earlier tomorrow, when it was quiet and free of entitled parents looking for a fight. I love my job at the Children's Museum. I create interactive spaces where kids can explore and learn through play. Seeing the joy on those little faces makes all the hard work worthwhile. Things got complicated a few months ago when our roof failed after a heavy frost in December. Water started pouring down our walls, and my husband jumped into action. He's handy and decided that since the roof needed to be redone, he'd add dormers to create more space so we'd never have to strip the roof again. We didn't expect it would take so long. With the roof exposed during construction, each rainfall meant more emergency repairs and more time my husband couldn't go to his actual job. It also meant he couldn't help with our 9-month-old daughter. I was on my own trying to juggle a baby and a job while my husband battled the elements to keep our house from flooding. He was working from dawn till dusk on that roof, but the situation was overwhelming. So I went to my workplace, explained everything, and asked if I could bring my daughter temporarily. The museum director was understanding. She told me that I could bring the baby with me until things settled down at home. I thanked her and promised my daughter wouldn't be disruptive. The director said it was fine, pointing out that we were a children's museum. This was a relief. I couldn't afford childcare on my salary, and my family lives too far away to help. January became a blur of baby bottles, diaper changes, and working on our big February half-term project, an audiobook trail and baby sensory room. Despite having my daughter with me, I finished the installation a week ahead of schedule. Everyone liked it. My colleagues were great, often holding the baby while I mounted displays or tested audio equipment. My daughter became like a tiny mascot for our team. One co-worker commented on how well-behaved my daughter was and seemed surprised at how much work I was doing while caring for a baby. Another colleague liked the sensory room, saying the kids would love it. I was tired but proud. The launch week was approaching, and I was scheduled to work 5 days straight to monitor the new installation and fix any issues. Then, the day before launch, I received an email that made me angry. It was from the CEO, someone who rarely visits our site. The email was brief and cold. The CEO told me that I've been bringing my infant to work. They said this was inappropriate and must stop immediately, telling me to make other arrangements for childcare before coming to work the next day. No explanation. No mention of my situation or the work I completed. No recognition that I created a baby sensory room while caring for an actual baby. I sat there, looking at my screen, feeling angry and hopeless. Then I made a decision. I replied. In my response, I said I understood. I explained that since I had no other childcare options, I would be taking my paid leave effective immediately. I wished them luck finding someone to monitor the new installation during launch week. Then I emailed my team to let them know I wouldn't be in. What happened next made me happy. A co-worker messaged me asking who was going to run the baby room if I wasn't coming in. I replied that management would have to figure it out. Another colleague said the situation was ridiculous, noting they wouldn't even let a baby in the baby room. My team was angry for me. They decided that if I couldn't bring my daughter, they wouldn't pick up the slack. Another team member told me that they had all told the director the same thing, that if management didn't want a baby in the baby room, it simply wouldn't be staffed. Management started panicking. They called me multiple times, but I didn't answer. I sent a single text. In my message, I reminded them that I was on leave and asked them to respect my time off. Meanwhile, I started looking for freelance workshop opportunities. After years of creating successful programs, I had plenty of contacts. Within days, I had several good leads. The launch week was a mess, with no one who understood how the installation worked. There were technical issues they couldn't fix. Visitors were disappointed, and negative reviews started appearing online. To make things worse, 5 staff members quit that week due to poor management. In a small team, that was bad. I heard through my remaining colleagues that the director finally talked to the CEO. The director told the CEO that They had lost their best program designer and 5 other staff members in 1 week, all because the CEO wouldn't allow a temporary accommodation for a baby in a children's museum. The director pointed out that the baby was actually helping them test a room designed for babies. The CEO said they were just maintaining professional standards. The director said those standards had cost them their launch week, their reputation, and nearly half their staff. Yesterday, I received another email from the CEO. In this new message, the CEO said they had changed their mind and would make an exception in my case. They said they valued my contribution to the museum and hoped I'd come back. I typed my response. I thanked the CEO for their offer but told them that I had taken a position as an independent workshop facilitator with several local schools and community centers. I explained that my new job allowed me to bring my daughter to work and paid more. I wished the museum luck finding my replacement. I heard the CEO had to come in to try to fix the sensory room during the second week. He had no idea how to operate the audio equipment I'd installed. I imagine him there surrounded by crying babies, wondering why he banned a baby from a baby room. My husband finished the roof last week. Our house is dry and he's back at work. And I'm happier now, working on my own terms, with my daughter by my side.